realize that you have the flexibility of choice, you can do the same thing with what you choose to do in your day, what tasks you fulfill. Because we go down that road, we go down that spiral where we're at our own worst boss. And before we know it, our day is filled with crap that we don't enjoy. And I think sometimes you just have to shake things up, see the bigger picture and be like, well, you know what? I choose not to do that anymore. You're listening to Biz Buzz. Super authentic, actionable advice.
We're going to open the kimono and show you what's inside.
I'm scared to see inside Mike's kimono.
Hey, it's Mike and Tom with Biz Buzz.
If you like geeking out over business, marketing, and entrepreneurship, this is the podcast for you. Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 18 of Biz Buds. I am joined by the illustriously handsome man that is Mike Janda today. What's up, Mike?
I'm so good looking. I'm so happy to be here for episode number 18.
There's going to be like 5% of the listeners with no sarcasm detector who are like, who is this guy?
They're going to drop out. Hopefully this isn't the first time you've listened to the Biz Buds podcast. We love doing this show and enjoy a little bit of banter. And Tom keeps coming after me about my massively good looks, and I just have to embrace the compliments, I suppose.
Yeah, I can't help it. I feel very insecure when I'm digitally sat next to Mike like this. I feel like Quasimodo by comparison. Yeah. So what can I say? I
didn't say it. All right, what are we talking about today?
That's a great question. We are here to podcast after all. We are talking about enjoying the journey, which is a little bit different because, you know, we're definitely squeezed the old biz bud action points in today. But I think this is almost more of like a philosophical episode. You know, this is not how to price your work or like some marketing tactics. This is more a holistic, how do you be happy as you do this thing?
And the irony of this episode is that I have been so bad at this for the majority of my career that I've really only started to kind of figure it out and enjoy it in the last year or two. That's it. Before that, man, just struggled to enjoy the moments that I was having. So how do you want to kick off on this? This one isn't going to be actionable like, okay, step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. It is going to be more of a holistic approach and conversation to this topic.
Well, I think let's share how we felt over the years, because I'm sure that's going to be relatable. And I will premise this episode by saying, I think enjoy the journey has almost become an entrepreneurial soundbite. It is the endlessly memed saying that you see on social media. Everyone's like, just enjoy the journey, man. It's not about like the summit. It's about the climb, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so wishy-washy when that is all it is.
Yeah.
You know, you can read that meme and kind of nod and be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But when you're in it and you're not enjoying the journey, it's pretty damn miserable. So Why did you not enjoy the journey for so many years?
It was the cliche, man. It was so focused on the summit that I wasn't enjoying the path. I wasn't enjoying the hike. I wasn't enjoying the looking at the flowers and the trees and the wildlife on the trail up the mountain. I was just so focused on, I got to climb to the top of the mountain. I got to get there. I got to get there. And as a result, I didn't enjoy the good times, and I hyper hated the bad times of my entrepreneurial timeline. Let me give you an example. When I was 6 years into my agency when the economic recession hit. And it was a blow, man. We cut our billings in half from one year to the next. So 2008, we did 1.4, 1.5 million. In 2009, I did like 700 grand. And I was so hurt by this because I felt like, oh, I'm a failure. I had this rockin' business and now I'm struggling to make payroll.
And you must have really struggled because you didn't have an Instagram meme telling you to enjoy the journey back then.
I didn't. There were not podcasts the way that it is. I struggled. I emotionally went to a dark, sad place. And my wife convinced me to submit for this award program in our state for business awards. It's a well-respected award program. And I decided, by her forcing me on the last day of the deadline to submit, I decided, okay, fine, I'll submit for this award. And we actually won. We won the award. And I went and picked up the award at this big black tie gala, and people are taking pictures and things. And this is right like a month after I had to lay off half my team, and it was just this miserable, dark time. And I remember getting this award for the success of my business and the great work that we had done.
And we were really hollow at the time.
And I did. I walked out of the thing and I just wanted to throw it in the trash. I had just gotten this accolade that I had coveted, and I just wanted to throw it in the trash because I felt like it was imposter syndrome. I felt like it wasn't merited for some reason, even though the award program thought that it was merited. Now, what I didn't know is that every business was struggling at the time. I was so hyper-focused on my own challenges that I didn't look outside of myself and realize everybody's struggling. Every business had their billings cut in half if they were lucky. The unlucky ones lost their business completely. So I was so selfishly focused on my own misery that I didn't enjoy, and I didn't look outside and realize that other people had it a lot worse, and that what I was doing was still an accomplishment. Staying in business at all during that economic recession was an accomplishment for any businesses that stayed in business. I mean, banks and things were getting huge bailouts. Governments were keeping businesses in business. Nobody was keeping me in business other than me on my own. Tweaking
you were
the dials.
Succeeding just by surviving.
Exactly. But I didn't understand that, and I didn't see the reality. And I think that that's where we get into trouble when we're in this entrepreneurial push, focused on the summit. We don't realize the reality of what's happening in our lives and in our business.
And that's quite an extreme example. Obviously, huge recession, laying off stuff. But even day to day, even when things are going well, it can feel damn near impossible to enjoy the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want this episode to be that people listened and went, oh, well, it's fine, Tom and Mike. You get to enjoy the journey because you've, reached a degree of success now. Good for you. But I'm not in those shoes right now, because I'll be honest, some of my darkest hours and some of the times I've enjoyed the journey the least have been actually following huge success. And we talked, I think, last episode about your company taking off like a rocket and you holding on for dear life and the boulder up the hill, all that stuff. So even when that happens and you find product market fit, it doesn't just become easy. It doesn't become this thing where you can kick back and just be like, oh, cool, I'm just going to drink pina coladas and enjoy the journey.
Yeah. It's not that. I mean, that's the thing. You've got to enjoy the rush of the boulder pulling you up the hill. You got to enjoy the rush of saying, whoa, I'm hiring people. This is exciting. This is great. Even though your life sucks, even though it's like you can't keep up with the growth, and it's such a burden, you got to figure out and realize in the big picture, this is a milestone in your life. We're in the middle of coronavirus right now, and it is miserable for a lot of people, and people are losing loved ones, and people are losing businesses, and people are losing jobs, and it is a massive challenge. No question about it. And it may sound naive to say, okay, how do we enjoy this journey right now when it is hitting people really hard in their lives? But you have to look at it and you have to say, you know what? We're also at this very moment living history. We're living a chapter in the history books. This is something that 100 years ago from now, people are going to be talking about. This is something that 50 years from now, your grandkids are going to be asking you, Grandpa, what was it like during the coronavirus? What was that like? And you're living these experiences. And I think that's part of this broader picture of saying, okay, what is really going on in our lives right now? And what are the things that we can learn?
That's
the perspective. Yeah. So a lot of it is perspective.
Just on perspective, you can lose that so easily. You can really go down a rabbit hole of anxiety, tunnel vision. You lose yourself to the world. And I've heard a lot of entrepreneurs that are, vastly more successful than you and I talk about it feeling like a curse. They feel like their passion for what they do is a curse because they get so wrapped up in it. And in many ways it becomes self-destructive. And it's almost like a drug addict, right? They just keep doing it and putting themselves through it, even though it's bad for them. They keep also craving more. We're going super dark on this episode, guys.
This is supposed to be an uplifting, good episode.
Yeah, enjoy the journey, man. But I think it's important to look at the side of it. And, in episode 2, when I shared my backstory, obviously I put myself in the hospital and really went through the ringer. And the thought I've had many times is that I would be in our office and it would hit 5 p.m., 5:36, and the team would go home. And I would be stuck in there working like a madman. And, that's kind of what happens when you're the boss, right? Mm-hmm. But especially if it's like a summer day and everyone's skipping out, laughing, and going down the pub and going to go have fun. And then I get out the office and maybe, I'm on my way home and I'd see people going to the gym and they'd all be like tanned and in amazing shape. And I would be like white. I'm white,
skinny.
Exactly. And I'm pretty healthy right now, but I've had to work for that because I get so wrapped up in the entrepreneurial bug. That I neglect my health. I'm not like eating right. Like I say, I'm like pale. And I look at these people where it's like they just clock off and so much of their energy goes into like self-care.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, I've just been wrapped up in being an entrepreneur and you start to feel like you're wasting your life. So that's about as far as you can get from just enjoying the journey. And just to say, I love it. Through all that, I love what I do. I love it so much that I get wrapped up in it, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? Mm-hmm. It's not all just, the crazy, happy journey of being an entrepreneur. It does feel like a curse at points.
Yeah, it is. I had it before. It does feel like that. It isn't a curse. And we're going to talk about how to tweak our mindset and perspective to enjoy it better. But I had these kinds of challenges before I started my agency. I was working at Fox Studios, and I was in the Die Hard building. The movie Die Hard. It was in the Die Hard building. Nice. We had like 20th floor or something, and my friends in our department would go to lunch on the Fox lot, which was just across the street from us. And they'd go to lunch, and they'd sit in the Fox dining room, and they would come back with stories like, "Oh, we saw Denzel Washington today," or "We were throwing a football with Jenna Elfman," who was in a comedy show back in that day. And they would come back with that story. But meanwhile, Mike was sitting here bringing his lunch and cranking through lunch hour, working on stuff, just being I got to get this done. I got to do this. I want to accomplish this. I got to get this done. And I was skipping
and not
out.
even happy in the process.
And not even happy. Knowing that at some point, because they had sold our divisions to Disney, knowing that I was eventually going to get laid off anyway. But even then, I didn't go and enjoy the experiences that I could have enjoyed at the time. And so it was such a missed opportunity because of me focusing so much on accomplishment, getting to the top of the mountain, whatever. I didn't enjoy opportunities that I had. And I think as entrepreneurs in an entrepreneurial mindset that is detrimental to us as people, it is habitually stressed. Whether we have something to stress about or not, we're going to find a thing to stress about because we are in the habit of being stressed. It's habitual negativity. We are habitually discounting the successes and focusing more on the problems in our business because we're like, oh, I got to fix that. And so
you don't stop and celebrate.
You don't stop and celebrate. You can have 10 big wins, but the one big problem is all your focus instead of looking at it and saying, oh, and that's just habitual behavioral patterns that so many entrepreneurs get into. Habitual worry. We lay in bed at night, and what are the last things you're thinking of when you're an entrepreneur with a team of employees and cash flow? The last thing you're thinking of before you go to bed is not kissing your wife and saying goodnight. It's, all right, what do I got to get done tomorrow? I got to get this. I got to fix this. How do I fix this problem?
Yeah,
that's what you're spending your time on.
Got that looming like HR problem or whatever it might be, or the figures are not where they should be this month,
or the client is mad and tomorrow's the meeting and all this stuff. We habitually worry on that stuff. And the worst one is habitual work, which you and I both talked about. It's everybody else gets to go to the gym and I'm going to stay down here working because I'm going to grind it out. I'm an entrepreneur. And and then you wake up.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah. Well, you wake up 30 years later and you realize that you've worked and worried 30 years away from your life, that you could have spent time focusing on the right things and making work be part of your life, not all of your life. Mm-hmm. All right, so how do we do this?
I have no idea, man. End of episode.
Good luck, everybody.
Yeah, we're going to leave you feeling nice and bleak.
Yeah. Okay, my wife and I, just a side note on that, because we don't like to do that in this podcast. My wife and I, when we were first married, we were married for like a year. It's a complete side note tangent. We went to some evening workshop thing about couples and how to improve your marriage and stuff. And we weren't even having problems. We were doing good. First, still in the honeymoon phase.
The other couples feel bad.
So we show up at this thing, we sit through the thing, and people were asking questions and stuff. And the presenter was a couples therapist, and he shared how it was kind of in the heyday of the men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing. And he was saying, okay, women communicate differently than men, and women need this and men need this. And he took his entire time to show how men and women were different and by nature incompatible. And then he ran out of time and said, oh, sorry, we're out of time. And then he sends all the people home. And my wife, man, she's crying at home. She's like, how are we ever going to make this work? Because he gives us, look, we have all these problems and stuff. And I don't know if he was...
the big solution is, and then just the alarm goes off. Oh, and
that's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is. So we're not going to do that in this lesson. We are going to now discuss how in the world do we fix this problem? Because hopefully a lot of entrepreneurs feel this, and hopefully you see that Tom and I both felt this, and any entrepreneur that says that they don't know what we're talking about is probably lying, because this is so common. Everybody who is entrepreneurial minded is feeling this in their lives.
And ironically, I would say you and I are actually pretty damn optimistic as people. I know it hasn't sounded like it for the last 15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
It's just been bleak as hell. But, we are. I have loved ones that are entrepreneurs that are incredibly pessimistic with their outlook. And I struggle with that. I think it tends to be a losing mentality.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for the optimistic side of things,
Mm-hmm.
but you still can't escape the reality of some of that grind and some of that hardship.
Yeah. Yeah. I am optimistic as well, and everybody probably has felt that if you've listened to a number of these episodes. I also try and be a realist. I try and force myself into that, but I do look at the cup as half full. I had a therapist that I talked with one time about trauma and PTSD from my agency and things, and I went and got some counseling and stuff, and super valuable. And he was saying, okay, if you've got a glass of water and it's halfway full, is it half empty or half full? And the right answer to him is it's neither. It's 4 ounces of water. That's the realist perspective. It's not half empty or half full. It's 4 ounces of water. And I thought about that, and I was like, yeah, that's true. But you know what? My perspective that I prefer for my life is to look at it and say, you know what? It's half full. It's a half full cup of water and not half empty.
See, for me, the glass is smashed on the floor with the remnants of the water dribbling down the drain like your hopes and dreams. So,
well, we all have a different perspective. So
I'm kidding, of course.
Yeah.
All right, so what can we do about it? I think that there's a bunch of stuff. I'm happy to kick us off.
Okay.
For me, a big thing has been trying to tune into the underlying passion and reason behind it all. Because I think that can easily get sidelined with all the crap that comes up in your day-to-day. But we started it for a reason. So for me, I was just a kid that loved to play around in Photoshop for hours, like a nerd for fun. And I loved making websites, bringing people together, creating communities. And it's very easy to forget that when you are dealing with the HR or accounting problem or whatever, comes up and derails that. But when you take a step back and think, you know what, like, this is pretty cool. Like that perspective. And in terms of perspective, taking a step back and saying, I don't have some asshole boss barking orders at me every day and telling me to do everything on his terms. I get to be flexible. Any rigidity is self-imposed. And sometimes you almost need to slap yourself in the face and take that step back. And something I've done is very rarely, but I've forced myself to take a day off for a perspective shift, because you become your own worst boss. And so when you're like, well, actually, I can just, it's Wednesday afternoon. I can go drink a glass of wine and like go for a walk in the park just because I feel like it. And that kind of jolts your nervous system where you're like, oh yeah, it's pretty awesome being an entrepreneur. Because you get rid of that, make-believe, terrible self-imposed boss that you've been to yourself. And you're like, I am in control. So there was a few things there, but do you
There were a few
resonate with
things.
any of those?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you started by talking about, what's the passion and reason that you're doing this? What's your purpose? And if you understand your big picture purpose and you're focusing on that perspective, then the mundane challenges of HR this or HR that or bad client this largely go away, because these are just little blips in your bigger purpose. They're not all consuming. So I liked that piece of what you were saying. I think that's valuable. The other thing that I extracted from what you talked about was take advantage of the reality of your situation. And I gave my example of Fox. I didn't take advantage of going to the Fox lot every day for lunch to go and walk past Denzel Washington, who's in the same dining room. I did that occasionally, but not every day. And I should have done it every day while I was working there, because it was such a unique opportunity in my life to be right there and employed by them and have access to that. But I didn't take advantage of it.
Just to push back on that for a second, I think a lot of people, myself included, would probably think, well, Mike, you are where you are now today because you didn't go for the parties and the lunches and you worked super hard. But I think there is a middle ground where you can be incredibly ambitious, incredibly hardworking, but you can stop and eat lunch.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I erred on the side of out of balance, too focused on the one. So you're right. And I mentioned that in habitual stress, habitual work, habitual worry, those kinds of things. So yeah, there is a balance. So maybe that's point number 2 or 3 here is find the balance. Find the balance between the drive and the push, but let yourself enjoy these breaks and these unique experiences that you get to have. I think that's a good point you had there.
And what you're talking about with Denzel Washington is enjoying the little things, because a lot of them will happen. And I've been in a position where my team are just finding delight in some funny thing that happened in the office, and I kind of barely look up. I'm like, yeah. And I keep working. And I really started to shift into stopping and enjoying those more. And one silly thing was we started doing team workouts in the office. So we'd all stop just for 5 minutes. We'd start planking, doing push-ups. There would be like 8 of us on the floor doing that to some silly bit of music. And we'd all feel really energized after. And before I'd be like, oh no, I don't have time. That's going to disrupt my work.
Yeah.
But I started opening myself up to stuff like that. And guess what? The work still gets done and feel a damn sight happier.
Yeah. It's such a good example. These little things. Let yourself enjoy those little things. Let yourself have those little moments. Don't power through those. The little things, one thing that I think can help people with this mindset is the idea of a gratitude journal. And I don't keep a journal. I should do better about that. I know it's a cathartic experience that a lot of people have, and it's effective. I love the idea of a gratitude journal where every day you're just writing down all the little things you're grateful for, and it can have a dramatic effect on your perception of reality. And if we don't let ourselves make this list in our brain of, man, I really loved that little 8-minute workout. And yeah, that joke was so funny in the office. I sure like this new employee we have who brings this new culture. So grateful for this hire. Oh, that client was a big win. We just landed this new deal. If we don't write the gratitude journal, then it's so easy for us to start making the ingratitude journal in our head and going home at the end of the day saying, man, my biggest problem is this, and I'm worrying about that. Ignore that list. Write the list of things you're grateful for and things that are good.
Yeah, I actually do the 5-minute journal, or at least I did. I've stopped because I'm an idiot, even though it made me feel great. But I did it for months and months and months. And it would be all kinds of stuff. Like I saw something in the news about these people that had been horrendously imprisoned somewhere in the world. And so my thing that day was like, I'm grateful for my liberty and my freedom. And other times it's like, I'm really grateful for my team. Like, I got a few residual health issues after my surgery and stuff. So I can wake up and not be firing on all cylinders, and the company runs because I've got a great team. And, I'm grateful for my business partners, and I'm grateful for our community. And I just got in the habit of writing these things. And when you do that at the start of your day, you're like, everything's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
It really is.
It changes the perspective. And a lot of this enjoying the journey is a perspective shift. It's tweaking your perspective of how you're perceiving what's happening to you in your life. Something that helped me a ton, and this goes toward journaling, but something that helped me change the perspective I had of my business was when I started writing my first book, Burn Your Portfolio. Once I decided, I'm writing a book, then every single experience that I had became an opportunity for lessons to implement into this book. So when an experience was bad, at least I had a positive perspective of, all right, that sucks. I hated that, but I'm going to fix it for myself and everybody else that ever reads this book. I'm going to fix it for them too. And just that little shift of saying, what is happening to me and how do I learn from this lesson can be super effective in helping you have a brighter outlook on life and not get so stuck in this negative entrepreneurial push.
I agree. We use Slack for our internal comms at Design Cuts, and we set up a channel called Good Vibes. and people put stuff in there every single day where it will be a win. They achieved something in their role. They got great feedback from a customer or one of our designers. It is like, it's just gold in there every day. And every time someone posts it, you can respond with like emojis, and our team love an emoji. So you put something in there, and then every team member, literally, there's like a sea of like 30 emojis.
That's so fun.
So you've got like an animated dancing banana that's like celebrating your win. That kind of stuff, because otherwise you forget to do it. But when you have something like that, it just becomes habitual and it becomes a daily just part of your work.
Yeah. That's a good one. You mentioned it, celebrate the wins, and we talked a little bit about it at the start, but it's a great action item here. We have to let the 10 wins have 10 times the value of the one problem that we have in the day. And too many entrepreneurs or ambitious people in general let the one problem have 10 times the value of the wins. So the perspective is wrong there. You have 10 good things, it should be 10 times more impactful to you than the one bad thing that's happening.
Yeah, for sure.
One that I think is super important in this that causes people a lot of grief is the comparison. It's comparing yourself to other people. And this causes a lot of lack of enjoyment in the journey, because wherever you are in your journey, you can always compare yourself to somebody who's already at the summit, who is at least at base camp 1, or at least at 10 miles ahead of where you are. And we often have, as humans, the nature is to compare ourselves to the people in front of us rather than looking behind us and realizing that there are tons and tons of people behind us as well. Well, we don't care about them in our comparisons. We only care about the ones who are so much farther ahead.
It's so toxic. And there's always going to be someone further ahead. You can regard yourself as a reasonable looking human being, and then you do a podcast with Mike Janda and boom.
You're like, why do I even have hair? You think to yourself, I've got to shave this off.
Wasted on me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's true though. We make these comparisons to people at their best. We compare our challenges to other people's wins and successes. We compare where we are in the journey to somebody who's farther along in the journey. Flip the comparison. Start comparing your strengths to other people's weaknesses. You're going to feel a whole lot better in life.
It's not in a nasty way. You're not looking over your shoulder being
it's partially sarcastic, but it's a true concept. Instead of comparing your weakness to somebody's strength, compare your strengths to somebody's weakness.
Yeah, and not even necessarily weakness, but just earlier in the journey. We both coach people, and man, it gives me perspective. It gives me so much perspective when I'm working with a coaching student who's just going through the pain of trying to figure it all out and that early days stuff. And I want to help them so desperately, but equally I look at them and think, I remember that exact feeling. I have so much empathy for it, but man, it gives me so much gratitude for being out the other side of that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, this is a good little punch list of ideas relating to enjoying the journey. What else you got?
I got one more. This has been huge for me. The same way you can take that Wednesday afternoon off and realize that you have the flexibility of choice, you can do the same thing with what you choose to do in your day, what tasks you fulfill. Because we go down that road, we go down that spiral where we're at our own worst boss. And before we know it, our day is filled with crap that we don't enjoy. And I think sometimes you just have to shake things up, see the bigger picture and be like, well, you know what? I choose not to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I know like in the early days, you have to wear all the hats and obviously we've both been there.
Yeah.
But as you go on, it's still so easy just to keep doing all the crap you don't want to be doing without ever doing anything to change that. And so particularly in the last couple of years, I've been really trying to get introspective and think, well, what parts of the job do I enjoy the most? And generally that's also what I'm best at.
Yeah.
And we did the whole episode on prioritizing tasks, right? And 80/20 and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I am so aggressively like either stopping doing the bits I don't enjoy or delegating them or automating them. And I know we've got some future episodes planned on exactly how to do that stuff. But it has made me so tremendously happy just to say, hey, I love doing this. I'm barely doing it at all in my role. And I'm going to try and fill much more of my day-to-day role with that.
Yeah.
Because it's great.
Yeah.
Have you done that?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm bad at it right now because I don't have a team to delegate things out to. So in my business, I loved that. When I had a batch of employees, it was easy to say, okay, I'm going to delegate against my weaknesses or the things that I'm not good at. And most of the time, the things that you're not good at, you don't enjoy doing. So I'm going to delegate out some of these things. And it does make a huge difference. But, you can do it in automated tools now. You can automate some of the things that are annoying to you in your life. There's so many ways to automate things with apps and auto pays and things. And we're going to talk a lot about that in future episodes about productivity. But I do like the idea of, okay, let's get rid of this junk that we don't like in our lives. Let's get rid of this. Declutter our actions in the day.
So I would say go back to the episode we did on prioritizing tasks, and we had all these frameworks for like ABCD and how to put the high impact stuff first. Run through that again, but instead of looking at business impact, order it by enjoyment. You're prioritizing what you love to do the most. It is such a game changer, people. Honestly, if you 80/20 that, you will just be so much happier. And guess what? Like, if you end up not making a ton more money because what you enjoy isn't the catalyst to, astronomical growth, so what? Like, we don't all have to try and be Elon Musk. I'm sure he's maybe not that happy. Like, so sometimes you can prioritize growing growing happiness, not just growing money.
Yeah. You have to decide, there's a lot of ways to monetize things in this world, and the monetization is not always money. Maybe monetization is not the right word, but the value of the things we do is not always money. It's not always numeric. Happiness has to be higher on our priority scale than cash, than getting the cash flow to be X amount of dollars. Because you mentioned Elon Musk, or Steve Jobs is notoriously known for being difficult, and his ambition and drive was so
it's like all-consuming.
Yeah, all-consuming. It was detrimental to his relationships and to his family and things. It was very challenging, and I don't know where it was in the end of his life when he got sick, but man, a lot of times getting sick will put your life into perspective, and I'm sure that there were some paradigm shifts in his life later on as a result of that. But we don't want to have that happen to us to give us the paradigm shift. Let's make the paradigm shift now and find ways to be happy now doing the things that we're doing right now. Because there are plenty of things, if you look around, plenty of things to be grateful for.
I agree. And just an example of this, clearly we're both huge marketing geeks. And I loved it so much, I started my personal brand. I started my side hustle. I was super busy running my company. And I don't know if I've told you this, Mike, but, we both coach now for money. I coached 7 people for 7 months for 2 hours a week for free. When I had 0 hours to spare.
Yeah.
I was already super stressed, but I needed to scratch that itch because I was so passionate about it, and I just loved helping those people.
Yeah.
So that was 7 months of my life for free.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it so much. I started thinking, well, what did I enjoy about that? And what aspects of marketing did I geek out with them about? And I started proactively bringing some of that stuff back into my company. And now a ton of stuff that I learned in that experience, I now get to do in my day-to-day with the day job and with Design Guys. And it makes me so happy.
Yeah.
The same way I geek out with you here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing this. I enjoy this podcast. I get to chat with a friend about stuff that I love. I have chosen to do this work when I could be doing something else that would make me more miserable. So doing stuff like this makes me enjoy my journey more.
Yeah. Me too. I look forward to it. We talked yesterday and we talked again today to record some extra episodes to get ahead. And
I'm not sick of the sight of you yet. I'll be honest.
Exactly. No, who would be? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, how could I be with those sparkling teeth? But
yeah. I'm with you, man. So you got to pay attention to those things. It's great perspective. Why don't we close out this episode by talking about the things that we are enjoying in our journey right now? What are the things that make you love your life and get up in the morning? And then I'll share mine and we can wrap with that.
Do you want to go tennis match or do you just want to listen?
No, you just go and give us a nice, good Tom Ross, heartfelt list of gratitude. And you don't have to start with your friendship with me in this Biz Buds podcast. I don't care if that's last on the list.
Yeah, it's probably bottom of the barrel.
Okay. Yeah. On me, it was going to be the first thing, but now I'm going to put it last also because you said you're going to. But don't start with that. Just start with what is the second thing. Start with the second thing you're most grateful for. Go.
Okay, so I talked about this before. I love building something from nothing, and that still excites me. The fact that we are putting our dent in the universe, we're impacting millions of people's lives through my company. I am so grateful for that. That fires me up every day. It helps me get out of bed. I love that. I love working with a great and talented team. I love having the flexibility as the boss to be able to kind of, put in long hours, but do that on my terms. I'm super grateful for that. I always have that perspective. I see so many people who are miserable in a day job or have a crappy boss or whatever. I am so grateful to be able to do more of what I love in the role, like I just talked about, and increasingly do that. I love getting better. I feel like I'm developing faster than ever. And me now would have crushed me a year ago as an entrepreneur. My skills are developing and I love it. And I love how it's constantly changing. It never gets boring or stayed. There's always new stuff to innovate on and explore and push forward. I feel like we have a real mission. I feel like we built something of real meaning, character, and that takes years to build up. And it's like, it's your baby and people have heard of it now. When we talk about it, they know about us and they have a conception of us that's very positive before they even talk to me. And that's so rewarding. And in fact, I get to do all the personal brand stuff around that for fun. It's just freaking amazing. And that's like the new second baby. And they support each other. It's like two kids playing together. That's amazing. All the friends and connections I make, you being one of them. We're getting to the bottom of the barrel now, people, but I'm going to keep going.
But keep going.
Seriously, I love getting to know you and James, made by James as well, and
great people.
So many great people and like-minded people, and finding those kindred spirits where even my best friends don't really give a crap about what I do and this whole world. It is so satisfying and just feeling freaking lucky every day to do what I love. When I think statistically over 80% of people don't like what they do, which is just mind-boggling to me. I love that it makes me a better person as well. So it's not just my skills in business. It makes me more self-aware. It makes me more thick-skinned. It develops my character in ways I never expected. It fills me with adrenaline and life like you wouldn't believe, where you just feel like, fireworks going off inside of you. It's just this crazy energy you get, especially when things are going well. I'm going to stop because I could rant all day, but that's a bunch of positives, right? It's
so good. That's so many positives. And you focus more on the business side of things. I'll kick mine off by just mentioning, I'm a very fortunate person. Me and my wife have been married for 24 years. We have 3 great kids. They're all good, charismatic, good-hearted kids. So I'm just so grateful that that's a unique thing in this world, to have a relationship and a good family that's been like that, because a lot of people have a more challenging situation than that. So I'm so grateful for that every day. And then from a business standpoint, because most of the rest of my life is business related, I'm so grateful for the experiences that I've had throughout my career, and that I've been able to turn those into lessons that I can now teach other people Oh my gosh, it's the greatest joy in my life. I get on coaching sessions and it's one of the first things I tell people. I'm like, I'm here because I love doing this so much. The one-on-one coaching, I love it so much. I love getting into the weeds of your business and helping you not have to go through it the hard way, the way that I did. And so it's just so rewarding to me. One of the greatest things in my life are these relationships. You mentioned James, and there are hundreds of people like that I've connected with in the past year through Instagram that have become my genuine friends. And when they don't message me for a couple of days, I message them and say, hey, man, I haven't heard from you for a bit. And, because I've built such a tight connection with so many people, and that just gets me up every day. So grateful. And I go to bed at night so grateful because I have my morning DMs, and then I work all day long, and then I have like a dinner time after business hours DM session, and then I do another one before I jump into the sack. And it's those relationships, man, just fuel me. So I have so much to be grateful for. For the first time in my life, I'm enjoying the journey right now more than I ever have, because I look at it with this lens of I'm through so many challenging times building a business, and now I have this big blessing of just being able to share and help others through their challenges, because I never had anybody help me through mine. I get so much gratification helping other people. Love it. I'm a grateful person. And then last on the list is I do really enjoy doing this podcast with Tom Ross Media, the illustrious Brit with the great accent and a wealth of knowledge. So this is a great thing that I love to do as well.
This is like a new baby too. This is going to grow up and be something.
Yeah. And it's so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's so fun, man. So, I don't think, yes, you got to pay your dues, and yes, you'll go through some hard times, but you always will go through hard times. So if you fixate on them, if you have that negative outlook, if you don't focus on gratitude, you will be miserable, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. I truly believe there is always stuff to be grateful for and enjoy. When I was 15 years old, staying up until 6 a.m., staring at my laptop, going blind in the dark, just working away on Photoshop through the night, geeking out, learning it, and just enjoying the process. Like, I didn't have any accolades or success. Mm-hmm. I hadn't even, talk about paying my dues. I hadn't even started paying my dues pretty much. I was just a sponge, just learning.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. And I feel like that's what you need to not let go of.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
You want to sign us off, Big Mike?
I'll sign us off. Hey, thank you, Biz Buddies, for listening to this episode of the Biz Buds podcast, episode number 18, about enjoying the journey. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the thoughts that we've had and shared today. As always, we appreciate you and your testimonials to this podcast, and we highly appreciate if you would write us a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. And as always, feel free to send us a DM or reach out to us. We're always happy to chat. Tom needs to share. He always likes to get the very last word, so we'll turn it over to Tom for the very last thought.
I'll let you sign off officially afterwards, but I just opened my browser and the reviews are staring me in the face, so I had to read the last one out.
Nice,
perfect. Talking about them. All right, it's from Millie J, who says, love this podcast, so much value. As a creative, this podcast is invaluable to me. It's absolutely jam-packed, full of actionable advice and things I can do to help grow my freelance business. Thank you, Tom and Michael. I like that she went with Michael.
Oh, I like it. And I love that name, Millie. That's so great. So fun.
So I've met Millie. I actually met her after I did a speaking gig in London, and a whole bunch of us went down the pub afterwards, got to hear about, she was a student at the time and she's graduated recently. So congratulations, Millie. But this is what I mean. Like, we got a real community growing out there of biz buddies and so awesome grateful people. So thank you, Millie. Thank you, everyone else. We have had a ton of reviews. It would take us about 20 minutes to read through all the recent ones, but all of them get read. All of them are appreciated. Back to Mike, because I want him to get the last word.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Biz Buds podcast.